Hello, I'm Sheila, relationship coach and author of Ageless and Sexy, a series of books dedicated to your loving the life you're living because you're loving the relationships you're in. Whatever the relationships are, they define our lives. It gives us an experience of who we are. So there are ways of always making things work better. I've recently made a distinction between two kinds of states of being that often are happening for all of us. Doesn't mean we always are any particular way. So for instance, for me, I notice there are times that I'm feeling particularly tight or afraid or closed off, and other times open and free-flowing and generous and loving. So I call the part of us that get closed off, we withdraw, and we want to protect ourselves as a heart at war. And I talk about that loving, open-hearted part of us that really has a natural impulse and inclination to want to give to others and to be nurturing and to open our hearts as the heart at peace. And I want to tell you a story about something that happened in my life recently that really underscores that distinction, and how in a particular exchange with a friend of mine, I acknowledged the heart at war in a way that gave him an opportunity to respond to me in a different way that made a difference in our friendship. My mother had passed away, and on the day that she passed away, I really needed a hug from people that mattered to me, that were close to me. My mother passed away in California, and I was here in New York. I was really on the verge of flying to her the very next day, and I missed it. I missed being with her. So I was in pain. And I reached out to this particular friend of mine. I sent an email. I said, I really need a hug. And this friend wrote back saying, you have my sympathy. Now that's not exactly what I was talking about. So my first reaction was to become that heart at war, that tight, closed-hearted, judgmental part of me that was feeling hurt and rejected and disappointed. I felt like I wanted to write back and say, you cold-hearted jerk, what's the matter with you? I took a deep breath. I tried to walk my own talk, and I decided to stay with it for a moment, not be judgmental, even to wait a few days. A few days later, he sent a text message, which was just a smiley face. And I simply asked, so what's this? You couldn't ask how I am? So he wrote back with a text message, so how are you? I said, actually, not well, thank you. I'm mourning the loss of my mother, so I'm surrounding myself with friends and family who are hugging me. Did I mean it to be a little twist of the knife? Yeah, I did. So that part of me was at war with myself. But still, I wasn't saying everything to him that I was thinking, and I wasn't letting him know how really deeply disappointed I was. He wrote back saying, glad to hear. Okay. I could see him dealing with someone here who maybe doesn't do well with intense emotions. The loss of my mother was a big deal. And I remembered that I had met this friend shortly after his mother had passed away. And I knew from conversations I had had with him that that was difficult and painful for him. I also knew that this was a man who had difficulty expressing his emotions in any way whatsoever. So I took another deep breath and asked myself, who do I choose to be in this situation? Do I choose to be a heart at peace, or do I choose to be a heart at war? But I still wanted to give my friend feedback about what I really needed and wanted. So I wrote an email basically saying, there are times in our lives that we define our humanity by the way we respond to one another in moments of crisis and need. And I asked the question, what would it take for someone to respond to a friend whose mother had just passed away by giving that friend a hug when she asked for it? And so I said it probably would take a heart at peace, someone who's willing to step into that natural impulse to be loving and nurturing. And if that person is not able to do that, perhaps they have a heart at war. Perhaps for that person something happened that somehow prevents them from being naturally who they are, from being naturally that heart at peace. And I made the observation in that email by saying, it seems to me that people who have a heart at war, more often than not, live a very constrained life, devoid of great joy and loving connection. The next day I received a text message from my friend saying, "So when can I give you a hug?" When he did come to give me my hug, I have to say, it was one of the sweetest, most loving hugs I've ever received. And I acknowledged him for taking that step. And as he was leaving from his visit, after I had thanked him for coming to spend some time with me and to give me that hug, he took my hand gently and he said, "I know what it's like to lose someone close. My mom died. I know what it's like." I said, "Sweetheart, I know. I know." He said, "I still can't think about it." And with tears in his eyes, he left. And I understood that his heart at war had more to do with something he couldn't allow himself to feel. And yet, when I gave him an opportunity to come and give me that hug, he stepped up to the plate, and he became, at that moment, a heart at peace. So all of us have that opportunity. If we step away from being judgmental, if we acknowledge the humanity that is within each of us, we're always in a state of being either a heart at peace or a heart at war. And to give the other person that benefit of the doubt. Maybe they don't really need to be a jerk. Maybe they're just a heart at war. Give them an opportunity to find themselves again. It helps.